Okay, everybody, if you're just jumping on, we're going to let her go for another 4 minutes. Hopefully we can start right on time. I would hope that there's no IT issues today. Got on early, made sure everything is up and running, so we'll hope for the best. Hopefully you can hear me okay. All right, I'll reach out and ask for some quick assistance if you can hear. Oh, thank you. I already got it. I was going to say, if you can hear me, let me know. Just drop a thumbs up in the chat, or feel free to jump out, though, if you want to say hi. And if not, just have me on in the background and keep doing whatever you're doing. All right. Is that clapping running, Brett? I appreciate that. Start with applause and downhill from here. So if you're just jumping on, again, we're going to let her go for 2 minutes. We're going to start top of the hour, 2 o'clock. Thanks so much, Ross. Over in Scotland. How are things over there for you today? Sorry, I have a few different monitors on the go right now, so if I'm looking over here. Perfect. No thumbs up in the YouTube emoji world, eh? That's too bad. I hear it rains a little bit over in Scotland. It's too bad. Are you able to ride inside at all there, Ross? Are you a Zwifter or anything like that? When you have to, eh? Well, maybe I'll catch you online sometime. I'll look you up on Zwift and creep you. Or you guys are more than welcome to follow me anytime. Let's see here. All right. Okay, 1 more minute, and want to be conscious of your time. Got a lot to cover in 45 minutes. So we will get going. Oh, look at that. Flipped over 2 o'clock right now. So I do have a little bit of a lag if you're throwing things into the chat. If you have any specific questions, I'll actually ask you to save them, as I'm going to be more focused on just getting through this 45 minute of content. And then at the end, we'll do a 15-minute Q&A if you want to dig into anything specific. And that way, hopefully I won't get derailed as much. I have a knack for going on these random tangents, so if I do that, maybe type in the chat, hey, let's get back on track here. Again, 45 minutes, we're going to talk about recovery today. We do have some limitations, obviously, in terms of time. This is a topic I could probably spend weeks on, so, you know, we're a few weeks short of what it would take to cover And I shouldn't even say we could cover everything, because research is always continuing to progress and we're learning new things in this topic. And it's a broad one. But I think, I think we might get going now. Hello, Phil from Wisconsin. Is it raining there too? Are you guys getting super heat wave as well? That's where we're at right now. I know a couple of the athletes that I coach living in the Midwest are finding it very difficult to get out for afternoon rides right now. And then down south, down in Texas. It's raining. Well, that's why you're here today, right? If not, you'd be out enjoying your bike. Okay, well, let's get going here. Welcome. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I know how busy everyone is, trying to fit in life and training and everything else. So to invest 45 minutes here with me today, again, really appreciate it. Well, maybe longer than 45 minutes if you stick around for the Q&A. But my name is Corey Christ. I am the, dynamic cyclist and runner coach. I think we've just invited a lot of cyclists, but I know you guys run as well, and there might be some runners in there. So I'm going to talk about cycling and running similarly on this topic. And to be honest, when we focus in on chronic training injuries, the rates are very similar, and probably a lot of the reasons that lead to chronic training injuries is very similar. So I'm going to lump everybody in, and I'm going to be talking about running and cycling. So you will basically hear, me reference those two sports specifically. If you're involved in anything else, well, same type of deal. You can overtrain anything. So, as I was mentioning earlier, we do have 45 minutes to go through the content. Really short period of time, obviously. This is hopefully the first of many of these training talks. I plan on doing them for, about every month or so, depending on what might be coming up. But hopefully every month we'll dig into some sort of topic that hopefully will bring value to your training. And these are essentially things that I see as a coach with the athletes that I work with. So I'm constantly having the same conversation over and over and over again, which is why, it's so nice to be able to reach a broader audience and actually take some of this content and share it with more people, including the athletes. And I'll say hi if there's any athletes that I'm working with right now that jumped onto this live stream. But these are the things that, really, I'd say, in terms of injury or injuries, it's probably I'm going to use the word pandemic as it's used so often right now, or epidemic. I shouldn't say pandemic, epidemic of training injuries. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit with some of the rates and some of the research that's been done out there. And then we're going to transition into talking about actual strategies and different ways to shift your mindset around training so that hopefully you can, again, remain injury free, or once you're done dealing with the injury that you have right now, you can remain injury free going forward as long as possible. Now, that being said, of course, we're talking about lowering the chances of injury. I don't think, especially when I'm going to talk about some of these rates at, upwards of like 85% of, say, cyclists in a year will experience some sort of injury or pain. And, obviously 85% is, well, the vast majority, which is the most, sad and disheartening statistic, especially as a coach. And, to be honest, as an athlete myself, I've been in that boat. There's nothing more frustrating than wanting to be able to train or be active or do, a sport that you love and not be able to do it because your body won't allow it. So to see that over and over and over again, as a coach, it's, again, incredibly sad when I have an athlete say, I can't do this or I can't do that because, this has happened. Not only do I feel partially responsible because obviously my training program, has assisted in that journey. With a caveat, you're always the head coach, whether you're working with a coach or not. I can't tell how your body feels, nor can any coach. And hopefully some of the strategies that I'm going to teach you today will help as well. So in terms of, again, working with a coach, losing an athlete due to injury, one, it's just incredibly sad to see because you know what it does to somebody. As you know, as an athlete myself, I can relate. And you know, it's something that I imagine all of you who started cycling and started running, you did it because you thought, you know, I'm really going to enjoy this. This is going to enrich my life. It's going to bring, you know, something of value to my life. And somewhere along the way, you know, whether it's training too hard, focused on a specific goal, you know, not taking the time to learn how to cycle or run properly. I mean, there's a whole gamut of issues and hurdles that may lead to injury. It's just something that we can minimize as much as possible. And hopefully that thing that was supposed to bring value to your life doesn't become a stressor or a depressor. I've seen a lot of people, you know, especially, you know, high performing athletes or elite level athletes, when they can't train anymore and, you know, that has become their entire identity. That's, you know, just who they are. It's what they do. When they lose that, you know, it can be very detrimental, you know, mentally as well. And, you know, that goes, you know, for everybody. We feel better when we exercise, when we are moving, when we're physically active. And again, when something comes up that stops us being able to do those physical activities, again, play some real good mind games. So that is why I decided to start with this one, focus on this, as I will say, especially my experience with working with the Dynamics team, because it is, you know, it's basically a program to help minimize the risk of injury or rehab. Well, most people searching for Dynamics, they're probably injured, and that's what we're seeing. That was a lot of the Q&A questions that I received. So let's see if we can tackle some of the prevention side of things, and hopefully you won't have to worry as much about the rehab side of things. So there's my long spiel, a lot longer than I was expecting to go on that one, but as I promised, I will go on these tangents. So the question that we're trying to answer, which is actually in the next slide, is why are you hurting yourself? That's the big question. We're going to talk about 3 specific areas. One is going to be the knowing doing, and I'll put gap in there, knowing doing gap. So the first question that I'm going to ask or present is, do you know how to train properly? And we'll talk about a few training principles. We're not going to dig too deep, but hopefully give you enough to make you question how you're approaching your training or your cycling or your running. And I'm going to say training. If you're not, you know, super focused, you just kind of cycle from time to time or go for runs, that's still fine. I'm still going to, you know, consider that training. You don't need to be on a specific training plan or working with a coach or something incredibly structured. The fact that you go out a few days a week, again, is training. You're putting stress on your body through physical activity. So we're going to talk about, again, knowing, do you know how to train properly? And if you know how to train properly, do you? And if you don't, why not? And I'm not going to go into all of the psychological aspects around actually doing things well. Just know, as, you know, endurance athletes, cyclists, runners, whatever, there is something inherently wrong with our brains to be able to, you know, or want to do these types of sports. But that's going to be the first point is, do you know how to train? If so, why aren't you doing it? And if you are an athlete that, you know, the small percent that know how to train and execute that properly, congratulations. We'll move on to point number 2. And that is going to be talking about how do you move? And we're going to be talking about some movement screens, bike fits, how does, you know, equipment come into the equation and change how you move, and, you know, really where, you know, that should lie in the importance of your training or your cycling and running. And then the last point that we're going to talk about is balancing your stress and your rest. So how hard are you working? How much are you resting? And we're going to talk about different technologies, especially in the last, when I first started, I mean, heart rate was just coming onto the scene, and that was like crazy. And then power meters, and now, you know, there's the technology is leaps and bounds when I started. So being able to use those technologies as to track and record your workouts, but then the applications, the softwares to be able to analyze your workout data to inform your training going forward. And if you're a complete beginner, and this is a little, might seem a little overwhelming or too advanced, that's totally fine. Again, one of the other limitations in this is I'm not sure where the audience is. There are thousands of dynamic cyclists out there, actually probably tens of thousands. So all the way from the beginner to the advanced elite athlete, we run the scale. So hopefully I'm going to be able to give little tips or tricks that will help, the whole spectrum of ability levels. So we will start a little more simple in talking about, again, knowing how to train, some of the basics, and the doing gap, or knowing doing gap, sorry. And then again, we'll get all the way down to HRV, heart rate variability, and how to use technology like heart rate and HRV apps to measure the autonomic nervous system to determine whether you are ready to train or whether you should take it easy for another day or two. So we will go, again, super basic to super advanced, and if you're somewhere in the middle, well, hopefully you'll glean something from some of the points I talk about. So this is the first question I have for you. If you're injured right now or you've ever been injured, and trust me, I'm pretty sure we all have been. I have been myself. Why are you hurting yourself? is the question you need to ask yourself. And you can go, I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time going through research journals, peer-reviewed studies, epidemiological studies of injuries. This is just one little snippet I wanted to throw in here. Feel free, jump online. You can Google anything and find a whole bunch of research on this topic. And it's a difficult one to research. You're going to find, the gamut from anywhere from 35, and in this one I've referenced is 85% of people in a training calendar year will experience some sort of injury. Now, obviously, or pain, I should say, in this circumstance. And this one's funny because it actually indicates that 67% of recreational riders with high levels of pain continue to ride. So even though you're injured, you have that knee that's giving you problems, your hip, your lower back, whatever, those tend to be the main areas. Severe pain or high levels of pain, I should say, continue to ride. So even though we know we're injured, we keep going. And, again, a lot of that, I think, comes back to that's just what, we enjoy to do it. We enjoy doing it. We like to get out with our friends. It's a social outlet. But we're also, we don't admit... we are injury deniers. No, it's probably fine. Maybe it'll loosen up. And you know what? That's the difficulty in trying to prevent injury is you're always going to have these little niggles that pop up. Sometimes, they just go away. And sometimes they develop into something worse. Sometimes they come out of nowhere where, all of a sudden, just bam, it happens with no warning whatsoever. So when I do say, prevent injury, there's no way to prevent all injury. Sometimes it just happens. I wake up from sleeping sometimes and my back hurts for no apparent reason. And it can take days and weeks. So again, this is hopefully strategies to lower injury, but it does happen. In terms of listening to your body, though, this is something that we can all get better at. And I'll just say as a blanket statement, if you're injured, you shouldn't be training, or at least training hard. The focus needs to shift to rehabilitation, getting back to 100%. And then if you want to improve, then you can, once you're back 100% and can focus on training. But until then, you're really just going to limp along, probably going to make it worse and going to prolong the time that you're out of the sport. Of course, there's always caveats if you're coming up to a major competition and, you just don't have time to shut it down. Your gamble is, are you going to be putting yourself out, for a long-term, long-term from sport to sacrifice doing this event? And of course, if you're going to the Olympics in a month, you probably would make that sacrifice. Most of us aren't. I don't think out of the 31 here, we have any Olympians. So The other interesting thing on this one is out of this, for Wilbur's study here, 518 cyclists surveyed, 440 had overuse injuries or reported overuse injuries or pain over a 1 year period. Now, I can't qualify the degree of pain, everything from a little niggle up to, I can barely bend my knee. But again, 440 out of 518, that's, 85%, give or take. I didn't do that math in my head, by the way. That was me calculating that earlier on. So again, in terms of how many people are getting injury, most of us are. When you scale or search the internet on this topic, you're going to probably find anywhere from 35% up to around 75%. I've seen upwards of 94%, I think, was the highest injury rate in a calendar year. So you are not alone if you're injured. So the first topic that I said we're going to cover is the knowing-doing gap. And that's all I'm going to say on that. So the first question is, do you know, or this is actually the first question that I ask my athletes, is do you know how to train properly? It's funny. I mean, I can write the workouts, be very specific, deliver them, and then check up on the athlete after and totally didn't do anything that I said. And I can tell even doing it remotely online because I can see your heart rate data, I can see your speed pace data, I can see whether you did running drills or a warm-up. And it's funny that, and this is kind of the knowing doing gap. My first question I have to ask them is, do you know how to train properly? Because if you don't, we need to start there. And if you answer yes, I do know how to train properly. Well, first I need to verify that. And second, well, why aren't you training properly? Now, I've been coaching for over 20 years and this hasn't changed. So I'm very excited to use the power of the internet here to share this again with more people, as I said earlier, and I will be shooting this to my athletes that I'm working with currently. So starting with knowing, and this, reverts back to even when we were a kid, and I don't know if this resonates for any of you out there online. Now, I'm 40 this year, so I'm just getting into the very important age where injury prevention is key. And I will say that over the last, I will say 5, 6, 7 years, I have not had any chronic training injuries that have put me out of sport. I get a niggle every once in a while, but with the experience that I've had, knowing my own body, I can deal with it and it doesn't disrupt my training. But that took a long time to learn. When I first started, pretty much went out, hammered it as hard as I could. I had this mentality that the harder you worked, if you just went out and cycled as hard as you could every single day, you're going to get better. And to an extent, I guess that's true, but definitely not optimizing my performance gains. Once I finished high school, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history as I go through this presentation. So after high school, I went on and I did a degree in kinesiology. I did a 4-year honors degree in that. And if you're not familiar with kinesiology, it's basically a study of human movement. So studying things like anatomy, physiology, biomechanics, sports psychology, training principles, nutrition, all the stuff obviously perfect for coaching world. And, it really wasn't until that time, and consecutively, I also started to swim with the varsity swim team. I'd always loved swimming growing up as a kid too, so I kind of got into that. And that was really when my eyes opened up. It was the first exposure to elite level training. My teammates, these were guys that were, going to Olympic trials, and we were training 4 hours a day, and it became very important to train properly, especially at those high volumes. So it was really an eye-opener from, I guess, my grade school days, which this is where, will my story resonate with anyone, especially if you're a little bit older. Hopefully, and, I imagine it's different from teacher to teacher, but hopefully things have progressed since I was a kid. But, track and field day was always my favorite day. I was always athletic as a kid. I just loved, running and jumping. And we used to train for track and field day about a month out from, the actual day. And part of our training was running around this block. And, as a kid, that block, I felt like it was 10 miles long, is maybe 800 meters. But that was our training route. And basically, there would be 30 of us. We would line up. We had our gym teacher, Mr. Falladay at the time, and he would lead us through static stretches. We would do the good old quad stretch, and as kids we're just reefing on our legs, and then we'd sit down and do this wonderful hamstring stretch, and a couple of those side lunge stretches, and that was it. We're ready to go. So a bunch of static stretching, and then teacher would say go, and you can imagine 30 of us kids just take off as fast as we can. It's probably about 150 meters for the first turn around the block, and full 100-meter dash right to the corner. And then most of the kids would stop and walk, try to catch their breath, pretty much huff and puff, catch their breath right to the maybe the last 100 meters, and then we would sprint to the finish line. So that was how I grew up learning how to run. Static stretching, right on sprint, and lose your breath, maybe run again, and shut her down, and away we go and play. Funny thing is, some of us have not progressed past that. So if that's you, now this is an extreme example obviously, but if you do static stretching before any physical activity, you don't warm up. So you either ride as hard as you can right from your front door, or run, and I'm not saying, full on sprint or anything, but you go hard, missing the warm up, and don't do a, prolonged cool down. Well, again, the progress, you're at the grade school level right now. Now, if you have that already, congratulations. I will even challenge, can you do more? So starting with the warm up very quickly. And maybe there we go, flip over here. So knowing, you're gonna see fuel in here a lot. I'm gonna talk about it at the beginning and at the end, but trust fuel all the way through. And when I say fuel, that is speaking to hydration and nutrition. So whatever, nutrients, vitamin, minerals you're taking in to fuel your exercise is incredibly important. So beforehand, focusing on, making sure you're fueled up, you're well fed and hydrated. Take well fed at a grain of salt there. There's specific fueling strategies. Don't eat a big meal and then go for a really hard ride. Then we have a warm up, and again, I'll challenge your warm up. Do you start super easy with a light pedal, with a walk? Do you gradually build it up? Do you do any activation exercises? Meaning some squats, some leg swings, some trunk twists, anything to get the body moving. Again, not the easiest on the bike, but definitely running comes more into play. But basically, do you gauge how you feel through the warm-up and make sure that you feel really good to take on that main set before you hit it? Hopefully the answer is yes. If it is, great. You're doing great with the knowing. Again, fueling all the way through. Then the main set. So this is the main body of work. Even if it's a nice, easy ride, it's a long endurance ride, still take your time to warm up. Once you settle into that aerobic zone, zone 2, maybe a little zone 3, depending on if you're pushing a little harder. Again, that is still considered the main set, and you want to go a little easier as you move into it. Obviously, if you're doing a higher intensity interval set, it's going to become even more important. I'm going to talk about those in a bit. Cooling down. Again, do you gradually ease it down? Do you, after your cool down, do you do any stretching, mobility, rolling, any other rehab or recovery? Oop, there we go. Recovery exercises or routines. And even after you're done training, like in the evening, do you do any additional rolling, maybe a dynamic routine? So there's a lot that comes with training outside of just that part where you're riding hard or running hard. And some people only do the riding hard or running hard part. So this would be the doing gap. I threw Strava up here. I am on Strava too. If you want to find me on Strava, hey, join me. We're gonna have some dynamic Strava groups coming out too. I'll plug them while it's just popped in my head there. But when Strava came out, I had a habit where every run I went and did, or every cycle I went and did, I had to post the fastest pace or highest average watts or whatever metrics I wanted everyone to see on my Strava. That's what I did. So basically, as soon as I hopped on the bike and did my first pedal, I was gunning for that average watts or those average speed values. And I would keep going hard right until my door and stop my watch. That's what uploaded. Now, of course, if I was smart, I would have done a warm-up, maybe started a different file, stopped it after my warm-up, and then got into it, and then maybe done the same thing for the cool down. But again, obviously not too smart. This is, again, a very common occurrence, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on Strava to do this, or, you know, any other of the social platforms that you might post any of your workouts on. It can be, frankly, I mean, when I started, it was, I do a 30K bike route, and all I try to do is make sure I do it faster than the last time I did it. So, yeah, if I got faster or I went faster, great, that was good. You know, same with running. I'd do my 5K, what was my pace, and every single run I just tried to beat it. And the reality is that one, it's not effective, and two, you should never be able to constantly beat, you know, your last performance, because what's happening is when you're training, obviously you're breaking the body down. You should be getting slower. Your performance should be decreasing. And it's only when you're able to rest and recover that you should see those, you know, peak performances. So, again, what I see all too often, and again, I can see it very clearly from the heart rate data or the power data or the speed pace data from all my athletes, is as soon as they press go, they're at, you know, as hard as they could hold for that intensity. So if it's an hour ride, you know, probably holding tempo or threshold. If it's a little longer, it's probably in the, you know, again, still tempo majority, maybe a little bit up into threshold, but they're always going hard. And again, if you do that and you don't modulate your training, you're basically going to lead to either a decline in performance or just plateauing, and you'll, you know, stay there. So in terms of being able to be okay with posting a 5:28 pace, and I actually, this is only a screenshot, not so I was gonna dig into Strava, because the main set I was running probably sub 4-minute intervals, I think, on this one. So in terms of what I can run, great. What I did run, or what I did post, includes all my warm up, my standing around and doing activation, so all the important things. Anyway, if you're that person where you get stuck in the I want to post the best thing possible, or I want to beat my time last time, get over it. We need to start training smarter. So in terms of time investment, just to highlight this point a little bit, this would be a high intensity VO2 max interval workout. And sorry, I'm in the hottest room of my house. Gotta open the door. It's peaking up here in temperature. So in terms of time spent, I mean, if you're gonna fuel, you know, getting all your pre-training fuel ready, your water bottles, you're looking at 10 minutes. The warm-up, so this section here, I guess the first half is the warm-up, that's 28 minutes. The main set is actually only 27 minutes, not including this last 3-minute rest interval, which I've kind of lumped into the cool down because, you know, the main work's over and we just go easy. Stretch and mobility, rolling, other recovery, you know, minimum 10 minutes after your workout. Fuel, again, maybe your after workout smoothie or whatever you consume, 10 minutes. And maybe, again, another little recovery session, maybe a dynamic routine, looking at another 15 minutes. So in terms of total training time, we're looking at 107 minutes, almost 2 hours we're getting close to here when we lump everything in. And the percentage of the main set, which is actually the, you know, the meat and potatoes of the work, is only 25%. And when I actually break out the high intensity, which I'll define as threshold or above. So all these little spikes here in the warm-up, as well as the VO2 max, we're only looking at about 19% of the workout is in the higher intensity zones. So I'm not going to get into polarized training or 80-20 rule or anything like that. I'm doing some training tips as well. You might want to check out on the YouTube channel where I'm going a little more into detail into those. But essentially, the work part, is the least amount. Even if it's a long endurance ride, again, the intensity is going to be quite a bit lower, and you'd still want to throw in the gradual build, maybe some pickups to make sure everything's fired up and you're doing, the muscles are activated. So it's okay to do higher intensity intervals in your warm up as well. So it's just not I go for 7 minutes nice and easy and then I'm ready. Depending on the workout structure, you may require a little more warming up than, again, just that 7-8 minutes of easy ride time. So anyway, point here is the majority of the focus, especially on this high quality workout, is on everything but the main set. Again, the main set's incredibly important, but again, there's so much more to it. So if you are one of those people that, again, you're pressed for time, I have an hour, I want to make the best use of the hour, so I'm going to go and run or ride as hard as I can for the hour. You can get away with that to a degree, but it will catch up to you. And again, I would say the quality of training, doing it, being more purposeful around the structure of your workouts will go a lot farther. I got to pick up the pace a little bit here. The next topic I'm going to talk about is how do you move? And if you haven't done a functional movement screening, and there's lots of them out there, highly recommend. That might be a good idea. We do, actually I'm going to get into that in a second. Let's see here. Yeah, as kids, this was my other story. I'm going to cut really short. Kids, we used to run and bike all day. We used to practice every day. And then there was a period of time where we probably didn't run or cycle for a very long period of time. And then we expect to be able to jump right back in and do it, as easily as we did when we were kids. Actually, I was at the playground the other day, and my wife was joking. We were on one of my daughters was playing on the monkey bars, and my wife went up and grabbed the monkey bars and tried to hold herself up, and she's like, "Oh my God, I can't hold myself up on the monkey bars." It's like I used to be able to go across, and I was like the chicken war champion of my school, and without practice, you'll lose it. And I see it all the time, especially with runners, where you think, running's easy, anyone can run. Man, there are some really, really bad runners out there. I'm sorry if you're a bad runner. And there are some really fast bad runners, probably running with niggly pains all their life. But, if you don't do a movement pattern in a long time, it takes time to develop it. And if you were never taught how to do that movement pattern properly to begin with, it's even harder, especially as you're older, to develop those movement patterns. So whether you are running or cycling, incredibly important that your body is moving well. I'm going to skip. No, I'll talk very closely or quickly on this one as well. The importance of moving well, and I just wanted to do a little math for you. If you're cycling at 90 RPM, or, this could apply to running as well. If you're running at 90 RPM or 180 foot strikes per minute, which is comparable where you should be running at a good intensity. You do that for 60 minutes. You're doing 5,400 pedal revolutions or 10,800, pedal strokes. 2 hours is 21,600. 3 hours is 32,400. And 5 hours is 54,000. If I said do 54,000 squats, you probably go, oh my gosh. Now, I should say, okay, there are some times where you're pedaling downhill and you're not actually coasting downhill and you're not actually pedaling, but you are doing an extreme amount of repetitive motion. And again, if you're not moving properly, your body has a limited amount of movements or improper movements. If you're moving properly, you're pretty much limitless. Your body can recover and rebuild and sustain, this type of repetitive movement. If you give it the time to recover, that would be the caveat. So in terms of moving well, incredibly important. I threw these two. I was going to tell you a story about me potentially joining the Navy Reserves, them doing my physical test, and him looking at me going, man, you're imbalanced. And it was purely, a lot of it was due to swimming, actually, because I was always breathing to one side. So one side was a lot more developed than the other. But also in my strength training, I really wasn't focused on it. And it turned out I ended up, tearing I was playing rugby, tore my ACL, complete tear, ACL, MCL, medial collateral, and some meniscus tears. Pretty much had to have complete knee replacement. They took a big chunk of my hamstring to replace the ligaments. That was the process at the time. I think they still may use that from time to time. Anyway, has always created a huge imbalance in me, and it had to be a big focus for me to turn into the athlete that I have become, doing large volumes of training, and still to this day my one hamstring is probably at least 20-30% weaker than my other hamstring, and it has always created some imbalance. But being aware of that and focusing on it, and again, you're gonna have to unfortunately do that homework and do that work to make that happen. But that's how I've been able to stay injury free and actually achieve some longevity in sport. The great thing though is you've plugged into a wonderful community. The Dynamic Cyclist team has created routines for stretch and mobility, obviously, but strength training, stability, all incredibly important to, again, keep you in the game as long as possible. And that really, that's the key to success, is training consistency, and you can't do that when you're injured. But also for quality of life, I mean, that should really be the goal for everybody. This one, I'm gonna jump back over. So the challenge when you throw in equipment is now, how does your body interact with equipment? And again, I'm not going to go into all the bike fitting stuff. It's the same for running shoes, but having a quality bike fit done will go a very long way in ensuring that you're moving properly. That does take a little bit of time and a little bit of expense, but I'm going to say if there's any investment, I've had this conversation over and over and over again with, I don't know how many people I've been talking to that have asked me about injuries, or again, the athletes that I coach. And most people haven't had a bike fit. And again, best money you can invest, because your body has to interact cohesively with this piece of equipment. And if anything's out of alignment on the bike, it will throw your body out of alignment. So if your body wasn't messed up enough to move properly on its own, let's throw a piece of equipment that's not fitted properly to you and see what happens. Of course, you're going to get injured, especially when you're doing, again, 54,000 repetitions in, say, 5 hours. So a bike fit, it should cost a few $100s. It should, video analysis is the new standard. By the image here, you can see this would have been some video being done and some angles being taken, some measurements. Much better than, the old protractors and protractors. Yeah. Anyway, so it's come a long way, and it should be a conversation. So it should be a mix of measurements as well as how you feel. And then you should be able to go away, ride it for a bit, take it in a real world situation, go for a long ride, and come back and, give feedback and make any other adjustments. Again, usually $200-$300, but again, in terms of investment, really probably the biggest bang for your buck, to be honest with you. So moving well on and off the bike should be a focus. If you ever have an opportunity, if you're working with a personal trainer, or think you have some issues on how you're moving, which I guarantee you probably do. I do myself, and I've been working on it for years. That can go a long way to keeping you, again, injury free. So the last topic I'm going to hit on is training stress. So especially in my younger days, this was my training mentality was the harder the better, more is better, no pain, no gain. I think it was the Arnold Schwarzenegger sleep when you're dead. Okay, I think we're good. It said reconnected. Not sure what happened. Anyway, so it was always, no pain, no gain. Just push through it. You'd be mentally tough. And let me tell you exactly where that led to. Yeah, I can train through this injury because, my brain is tougher than my body. There will come a point where your body doesn't give your brain an option. So in terms of having that little person on your shoulder yelling at you harder, 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 or even worse, a coach doing that harder, 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 I can guarantee you it's not going to end well. In terms of training load, again, managing, all we're trying to do when we're training is manage the stress and the rest. And the amount varies per athlete. It takes a little bit of time to learn. And we're going to talk about a few tools that you can use to help manage your stress and rest. So the technology, as I mentioned earlier, has come a long way in the last, again, even decade. 20 years for sure since I really started getting into endurance sports, cycling, running, swimming, triathlons, things like that. And, we can get everything now in terms of, heart rates, standard, power for running now, which is really cool. We can measure, again, I mentioned HRV, heart rate variability, the autonomic, your nervous system signals that, contract your heart. We can, performance metrics, speed, pace, vertical oscillation when you're running, cadence riding or running, ground contact time. Anyway, it's getting more and more sophisticated, and this has really accelerated, the learnings on training and have allowed athletes to train a lot more sophisticated than back in the past. And this is one of the reasons why we're seeing some of these top level athletes or older athletes still being able to perform at a top level. You never saw people in their 40s before, going to the Olympics, or I shouldn't say some sports, okay, in some circumstances, but it seems more prevalent now than ever. Actually, one of my good friends, Melindy, is going to be representing Canada in the marathon, and she's in her 40s with 2 kids, and just an absolute phenomenal runner and inspiration to be able to, again, perform at that level. I don't want to call it old Melinda because I'm about the same age. Us old guys, girls can still do it, and we can do it because we can utilize these technologies to train smarter. So in terms of using technology to record, track your workouts, we can then plug them into software systems, applications to actually analyze them and inform our training going forward, which again, never existed. When I started, I had a book, my log book, where I wrote down my workouts, how far I went, what I did, how far I went, how long it took me, and how I felt. And I closed the book and I never looked at it again. That was it. Unless I, wanted to go and dig up a workout I wanted to do another time. But in terms of being able to analyze my training stress, didn't exist. So training stress is really all we're doing when we're going out for a bike ride or going for a run. We're creating stress on our body from the physical exertion. Training stress has 2 variables. One is time, so duration, how long you're doing something, and the other one is intensity, how hard or how easy you're doing it. Those 2 things combined will give you an overall stress. And again, I'm not going to go into all the training stress stuff. Again, you can check out a little weekly training tip thing that I did on YouTube that'll talk a little bit more, and I'm still working on that series. But again, those 2 variables measured can give you an indication on, should I keep going harder or should I back off and rest? And that's really all that we're doing, is stressing and resting. When we rest, that's when we get faster. So in terms of common mistakes I see, again, even athletes that I'm working with right now, is they want to go distance. I want to, why aren't you telling me to go run 10K? Or why don't I want to ride 60 miles. Distance is a bad metric because the variable of speed is different for everybody. So everything you do, train by duration, time, because time is time. It's the same for everybody. It doesn't matter how fast you are, you're all working at a specific intensity level. That intensity level for me will be different for you in terms of the speed that you're going to carry at that intensity level. So again, all programming, I highly recommend do it by time and gradually progress time. Intensity is a very difficult metric to measure, and this is where it gets challenging, where you have things like don't do, or you hear sayings, don't do too much too soon. Well, how much is too much too soon? And this is where, again, training stress comes into play. And you need both variables. If you always worked at the same intensity, you could use duration and just purely base it off that. So if you're going to go off, say, the standard 10% rule, which has been a little debunked over the last little while as well. I only want to progress 10% per week, and I always run at the same duration, great. Same intensity, great. Just increase the duration by 10%. But what if the intensities are always constantly changing? What if you're throwing in high intensity workouts in from time to time or all the time? This is where it gets really complicated, and again, this is where it's really nice to have these software applications that can manage that for you. So distance doesn't matter. Speed on the bike, unless you live in a completely flat terrained area and there's never wind, speed's great. If you live in somewhere hilly like me, speed is not good at all. Speed's better for running, to be honest with you. Again, unless you're doing trail running or a lot of hilly running. Again, your best metrics for the bike is obviously power. Heart rate's okay. It's a good correlator. And for running, speed and pace is probably the best, and heart rate, again, a really good correlator. So in terms what you can do with this is you can start mapping your training. So this is one of my athletes from January 1st who just got started to all the way into the future. And what you can see here, the blue line is fitness. So fitness is gradually building. They're getting more and more fit. That's good, except that little dip there. The pink line is your acute training load, so how fatigued you are at any given time in a short duration of time. So this is basically a 3-week training block where I'm stressing my body, and then then I skip slides, and then I recover, and then I do it again and recover, and do it again and recover. And you can see all these little, again, it's a 2-step forward, 1-step back process where you are always having these drops. Same with fitness. You're going to see that, again, go up and down. And again, what that is allowing your body to do is recover, reset, and get ready. And then in the longer scale of time, you have these recovery weeks where you drop the volume and intensity, I guess I say training stress, to about, 60-ish%, give or take. You can go lower, you can go higher, depending on, you as an athlete and how your body responds and what you're focusing on. But essentially, you should always have that downtime where you do recover and then you're able to pick it back up again. This is, again, a common mistake I see over and over and over again, is skipping the recovery week altogether and just keep on plowing through. And then your training stress stays up here until, again, something happens, usually injury-wise, that drops you right out and, sets you back to the start again. So lots of cool tools. I use, again, Training Peaks to do all my coaching and training plans through. There are similar functions on Strava, Garmin Connect. All those platforms now are really starting to think about recovery. And this is where I made a comment. Hopefully I'll make you do a little shift in the way that you think about training. If you can make a mind shift from your training being you working hard to you recovering hard, so make it recovery focused as opposed to work focused, you are going to be way more successful than that person who goes out and crushes it every workout. And when I break it down, it really should look like a chess game where you're thinking 3 steps ahead. And when you look at a week, and this is just a sample week, again, one of the athletes, this is a triathlete, which even gets more complicated when you're throwing 3 sports in there. But the same principles, if you were doing multiple workouts or even just, one a days, you still need to be strategic. And again, if you're focused on rest, you will be incredibly successful. So for example, if I'm looking at this week right now, I can see that Monday is a little bit easier in intensity. So my focus, actually, sorry, I need to look ahead to to know what's coming. Tuesday, I have a harder swim and a really hard bike interval workout. So I want to be fresh for that one. Wednesday, same. I got a really hard run and I have some strength work. So Tuesday, Wednesday, those are going to be crusher days. And then Thursday looks pretty easy. Friday looks pretty easy. I got some optional stuff in there. It's all optional. That's nice. And then Saturday, I'm starting to ramp up in terms of duration, and Sunday. So there's a little bigger volume. So essentially my week looks like easy, 2 days hard, easy, 2 days a little harder. So if my focus is going to be Monday, I'm going super easy. I want to make my body feel as good as possible for Tuesday because I really want to perform well. When I get to Tuesday, I also know Wednesday's coming up. So I want to do Tuesday well. And I really want to focus, after I'm done this VO2 max workout, I really want to focus on recovery and do whatever I can to set me up for success, to have a really good run on Wednesday and strength. I'm just going to survive that one. And then Thursday, I can breathe a sigh of relief. It's all recovery focused. I'm not, well, I should say, in this instance, it's swimming focused, which shifts more of the stress to the upper body. The legs get to recover. So again, recovery focused, and I want to make sure that I am disciplined not to work hard. I have to recover Thursday and Friday because I really want to feel good on Saturday and Sunday. So again, to look ahead in your schedule, to pre-plan how you're going to tackle each workout, and to have it driven by recovery as opposed to how hard can I work. Trust me, everybody can work hard. I've never had an athlete that I've worked with or coached that I've needed to motivate. It's always the opposite where I'm going, oh, let's hold it back. Okay, I'm getting past my time. I passed the Q&A. We'll stay on a little bit longer. I did want to hit on heart rate variability. So HRV, and feel free to Google it. You can learn a lot more about it. So again, we're to the point right now where we can actually measure the autonomic nervous system. Heart rate variability measures the electrical signals that pump your heart and the variability in those heartbeats or those signals. And essentially what you do when you wake, there's a few different ways to do it. One way is take your heart rate in the morning, but there are other applications that can do it any time of the day. So you're basically measuring your heart rate. You're putting it into an application that measures HRV. You're tracking it over time. And then depending on your variability, whether it's up or down compared to your normal readings, it will tell you, yes, you're good to train today, or no, you're not good to train today. And then you can actually make adjustments to your training schedule, or you can communicate with your coach and they can make adjustments to your training schedule to actually match what your body's telling you. Now, this goes way back to the whole idea of the listen to your body. And I touched on this right at the beginning. A coach cannot feel how you feel, how sore you are, how fatigued you are, how beat up you might be feeling, or how fresh you are. So in terms of driving your own training, that should always be the first question you ask yourself before you head into a session. How do I feel? But you can also, again, use this technology to back that up. Give you assurance. Yes, I am tired today, which you probably don't need. Elite HRV, I've used that one before. I think it's free. Again, you can go to the App Store, just do some research on your own. I don't have any more time today to talk about heart rate variability, but later on, I think we'll really dig into that topic because it's a cool new technology, and it's a great way to use, again, the signals of your body, which maybe your brain isn't allowing you to hear. But, it'll give you that stress and rest. So that is it for, I guess, all the topics. So to summarize, The knowing doing gap. Do you know how to train properly? And again, only scratch the surface on that. There's so much more that we'll go into in later videos. Again, whether the training tips or more of these. But if you do know, why aren't you doing it? If you are, congratulations. You are ahead of most. Focus on moving better. I would start this. Again, only scratch the surface. Eventually, we'll get into some movement screens, some bike fitting stuff and best practices. If you can get in and see someone to get your bike fit, I guarantee you it is a great investment, probably the best investment other than the purchase of your bike. And again, if it's just kind of looking, standing back and looking and making some tweaks, get on, that's not a proper bike fit. You should go through the whole video analysis, do the measurements. You should be, not only your physical measurements, your leg lengths, your torso lengths, leg discrepancies. Most of us have different leg lengths that we're not aware of, but also your mobility. So, and flexibility. How flexible are your hamstrings is incredibly important to the bike fit. So what your body allows you to do will dictate how your bike is set up as well. And that will change over the time because the more dynamics sessions you do, the more flexible you'll become and you'll be more comfortable, be able to ride more aggressive or just longer on the bike. So focus on moving better, check, and balancing the stress and the rest. Again, this is my prime function as a coach, not only providing the training plans, to hopefully program the appropriate amount of stress and rest, but to coach you through that process. And again, it's a conversation. I don't know you and how your body responds to training for quite a long time. There's athletes I've been working with for, probably 7-8 years now, consistently, and I got them dialed. But it takes a lot of time for us to get to know each other, me to get to know you to get to know yourself based on some of the feedback that I provide you. And of course, using all of these, new technologies and tools to really take your training to the next level if you're looking to improve performance. Now, of course, nothing wrong with going out and enjoying some nice leisurely ride with some friends. And hopefully they don't push you too hard where you can keep doing that on a consistent basis. But still important to do all those little things because remember, you are going out and training, even going for a ride. That will be training. So balancing that stress and rest, using those tools, we're going to do a lot more on that. If you're ever interested in coaching or having a conversation about that, obviously that's one of my fortes here with Dynamics. You can always check out the link there. You can go to the website. We can have a one-on-one call, talk about your goals, what you might be struggling with, explore any of these topics that we covered deeper. And the other exciting thing we're working on is some training plans as well and training peaks that you can, take your training to the next level. Not only get, what you should be doing, but start tracking it, analyzing it, and again, bringing more sophistication into your training. So just scratch the surface today. Sorry for going bang on an hour. If you're still sticking around and you have some questions you want to throw into the chat box, I'd be more than happy to answer them now. Let's see if we, Lewis. After the 50s, if you do have any kind of pain, in the very high probability, you are dead. It's definitely harder. The older we get, the more time it takes to recover. Okay, well, looks like I may have bored everyone to death or covered everything so perfectly that you have no questions. But hopefully you will pop back. Oh. Hey, thanks, Sarah. Do you see any differences between oh, there we go. Thanks, Christian. Do you see any differences between aerobic and anaerobic exercises in regards to injuries? You know what? Every program that I do will consist of both. Obviously, the higher intensity, the more stress at any given point that you are placing on your body. The only comment I could make about that is I see athletes training at high intensities all the time, basically too much. So absolutely, that would result in a higher risk of training injury. I have nothing to back that up with my fingertips in terms of research, but that might be an excellent training topic or talk that I might do next time. But again, it comes down to those two variables. So you can be doing. I've seen athletes be doing an extreme amount of volume at a very low intensity. Same result. So, thanks, Ross. Sorry, as I'm getting distracted and reading comments at the same time. So sorry, Christian. I can't tell you specifically what the research says between doing the two. I'd like to actually do a little work in that area and hopefully present something like that on the next one. But again, it all comes down to the training stress. Know that if you are feeling fatigued or have a niggle, if you're heading into a high intensity bike or run and you're not feeling that 100%, your risk is much higher from what I've seen personally or what I've experienced personally. And what I would recommend and what I recommend to the athletes that I coach is it would be better to shift an easier workout into that day and push off a harder one if that's the case. So this is where you really have to get strategic and ensure that I'm feeling top notch for that workout. And again, sometimes you're not, and that's okay. It's better to push it off and delay it than it is to power through it. Again, especially the high intensity stuff. Yeah, thanks so much, Ross. Hope it stopped raining there. Andrew, appreciate it. Oh, core strength. Yeah. Core strength in cycling is huge. Actually, if I was going to focus on any aspect of strength for cycling, it would be the core. That's where I'd put all my investment. You're probably getting enough, leg strength through your cycling. However, you can also train, strength on the bike as well. But, when you think about a car and its chassis, you can have a 700 horsepower car, 8, 9, 10, the Fast and Furious, where, you're putting a huge amount of force through the wheels, but if the chassis is not strong, it's just going to twist and it's not going to actually deliver the power to the road. Same with the body. If you can have huge, strong legs, if you don't have the chassis to support it, the stability, that's huge. And then when you talk about duration of time on the bike, usually I find, especially when I get into some very long rides or multi-day rides, it's really the core stability that tends to fatigue first. My legs you're just pedaling away at the aerobic endurance or, zone 2 in the aerobic endurance zone. And you can go for, I'm not going to say forever, but a very long time. It's usually exactly that. The lower back, the upper back, everything tightening up. You just want to get off the bike. I've done some Ironmans where I'm like, I can't wait to run a marathon just to get off this damn bike because my core is so tired. So, absolutely, I would say it's huge. I think the Dynamics strength training program has a nice blend of everything, but adding in some additional core work will definitely go a long way. And then, of course, you will develop your core while you're just riding as well. I mean, you're always stabilizing, especially on the bike. So I would definitely say that's incredibly important. Strength, cycling, neck pain, shoulder. Yeah, that's awesome, Lewis. Yeah, check that HRV out. It's pretty cool. Again, it does take. It's not useful initially. It'll take a few weeks for you being consistent every morning. This is my challenge, is remember to keep my heart rate monitor next to the bed. But yeah, you have to be consistent for a couple of weeks, set your baselines, and it'll give you a nice little score. And, you're starting to see this from everywhere. Even on the watches now, it'll tell you your recovery time, your recovery score. Sometimes before you start a workout, it'll tell you how fresh you are. Now, I don't think any of them are as good as HRV, but again, the technology is coming. I mean, soon it'll be able to give us a defibrillator to start our hearts again on those really hard workouts. Okay, well, I'll give her one more minute if anyone has any other questions. Oh. Yeah, lower back is definitely probably the most common injury or point of soreness. Planks are great, so you can definitely do that. Front planks, side planks. Planks with movement is better because anytime you move, you're creating that instability. So if you're doing a front plank, lifting one leg up, maybe out to the side, same with the arm. So any of that instability creation is really good. Things to, even strengthen, again, when you're actually using movement, so in eccentric, concentric, or concentric, eccentric contractions, so things like back extensions, definitely will all pay dividends. In terms of the upper back, it's not a lot of people in the gym with the headgear anymore doing their neck lifts, but in terms of working the upper body, the upper back, seated row, back flies, or any rowing is really good for that upper back, trapezius, rhomboids, shoulder shrugs. And again, it will, over time, you put an extra weight on your head with your helmet. If you're in a really aggressive position, looking up, regardless, I don't care who you are, you look at even the tour guys, you're going to get stiff. So even managing your riding, so changing your positions frequently, getting up out of the saddle, moving around as much as you can on, again, fairly frequent basis will go a long way in that cramping up. Because, again, you can imagine holding a plank for 2 hours. You're going to get a little tight. That's a crazy example, but... which device can you use for HRV? Apple Watch? I don't know about Apple Watch. I should say what I don't know first. You can do it with any heart rate strap, and there's lots of mobile applications out there. Apple, they might be doing it now. I don't have an Apple Watch. I'll have to look into it. I know my old Garmin one doesn't have that sophistication yet. I don't know about the new ones. I need to get on my technology. But I do know for sure there are a number of applications in, again, either the App Store or Google. And you can throw on a heart rate strap and it will, again, do that calculation for you. I have no doubt that it either does do it or it will in the very near future. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does. Sorry, Simon. Unfortunately, I don't have a definitive answer for you on that one. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm going to wrap it there. Again, I want to thank you so much for spending your afternoon here with me today. Hopefully, you got a couple of nuggets that you can take and use in your own training or riding or running. If you do have any interest, you want to talk to me about anything, feel free, check out my coaching link and we can set up a conversation. And other than that, I wish you a happy Thursday. Well, it's afternoon for me. It might be evening or morning, depending where you are in the world. So enjoy your rest of your day and ride safe, run safe, Have fun. Train smart. We'll see you next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.